Holotype, which came out in 2023, is self-described as a competitive, light strategy game for 2 to 5 players. And as board game dad, the first thing I want to know is it a good family game? I would designate this as a family game, although I would say it's for families with older children. And I'll talk more about that at the end of this video when I give you my overall impression. But first, as always, I'd like to rate this game on the 5 attributes, which are theme, mechanics, components, strategy, and complexity. And through those ratings, I will describe what the game is about and how you play it in a brief overview. So first, the game's theme. There's actually a lot of information embedded in the title of this game, which is thoroughly described in the rulebook. So first, holotype. A holotype is a single type specimen upon which the description of a new species is based. And true to its name, the game comes with dozens of unique cards, each of which describes a unique dinosaur species, as well as the archaeologist and the date of the holotype publication. So in this game, you are those archaeologists discovering these holotypes. So in order to accomplish your objective as an archaeologist in this game, you're going to be collecting fossils from the 3 periods and piecing them together in order to publish holotypes. Now, with that being said, it's my job to rate this game on how well this theme is being implemented. But when I rate a game's theme, I'm not describing the quality of the game's artwork or its flavor text, nor how educational the game is. I want to know how the theme drives gameplay. And to really get to that for this game, I first have to describe exactly how it's played. So, I will give you my theme rating for the game, but not until after I've described the mechanics. Mechanically, this is a worker placement game with a unique displacement mechanic. Every player has 3 types of workers, and when placing a worker to perform an action, the placed worker blocks the space from anybody else. However, another player, or even the same player, can take that space and displace the worker as long as the new worker is equal to or higher up on the chain of authority. So, the 3 types of workers are archaeologists, grad students, and field assistants. A field assistant can displace another field assistant, a grad student can displace a grad student or a field assistant, and an archaeologist can displace anybody. After this happens, the displaced worker goes back to the owner to be used again. So, as long as a player has workers to use, they can keep taking turns placing their workers. But if they reach a point when they have no more workers left, they can use their entire turn to call back their workers. So anytime you displace a worker so that you can take an action, you're simultaneously aiding the owner of that displaced worker, because they don't have to use their turn to call that worker back. This is a really fun mechanic because it could be your turn and every place on the board has been taken, but because you've got your archaeologist, you can displace anybody. So the question isn't only which action do you want to take, but also which opponent do you feel like helping right now? Now, enough about the worker placement mechanic. Let's talk more about what these actions are and what you're trying to accomplish. At the beginning of the game, there are several objectives made available to everybody. There are the global objectives, which anybody can claim, as well as private objectives. And these tell you what types of holotypes you want to try to publish during the course of the game. So, holotypes are represented on specimen cards. So aside from the cards that you're dealt at the beginning of the game, one of the actions you can take is the Specimen Lab. The Specimen Lab will let you draw cards either from the discard pile or the deck and select some to hold into your hand. For this brief overview, I'm not going to go in depth about every action, but you can see here in the iconography that an archaeologist or a grad student will allow you to draw and keep more cards than a field assistant. And this is the case everywhere else on the board. The higher ranking workers will be able to accomplish more than the lower ranking field assistant. Every specimen card in the game is going to require 2 types of resources in order to publish it. They'll have some sort of fossils as well as some sort of research cubes. So in order to publish these specimen cards, you'll need actions to help you get these things. So the next 2 actions I'll talk about are for getting these things. The university library is very simple. When you place your worker here, you just get to take research cubes, and that's it. To get fossils, however, you're going to have to depend on a little bit of luck. The action is called field expeditions, and there you're going to be revealing cards from the field expeditions deck, and each of these has a dig site on it. The dig site is going to allow you to roll dice, and the dice have different colors based on what the dig site is. So you've got the Triassic dice, purple, the Jurassic dice, blue, and the Cretaceous dice, green. Now, because that's a bit of a mouthful, for the rest of this video, I'm just going to refer to those as purple, blue, and green. Anyway, you'll reveal these cards, it'll tell you which dice to roll, and whether or not you have the opportunity to re-roll dice. And after you roll the dice, you'll collect as many fossils as are matching the icons on the dice. The number of fossils you can store on your player board is limited, and if you don't like what you've got, you can use the Museum Collections action. There, you can use different trade ratios to trade fossils for different fossils, or fossils for more research cubes. The fifth and final action is the publishing journal. This allows you to do one of two things and is only available to archaeologists or grad students. The first thing you can do is you can discard your research cubes and fossil cubes to the supply in order to publish your holotype. The holotype will score you points at the end of the game, as well as help you satisfy some of the objectives. Your other choice when taking this action is to use one of your player discs to publish one of the global objectives. Now, this is a very interesting aspect of the game, because when you put your player disc into one of the global objectives, you can satisfy that objective in one of two ways. The first way is that you yourself can have personally published all of the dinosaurs satisfied in that objective. Now, depending on the objective, that can be difficult. So another thing you can do is you can discard 5 of your own research cubes in order to cite another player's research. Now, you can do this no matter how many other players you're citing. As long as you have 5 research cubes, you can publish in one of the global objectives. You can even do this if you yourself have not published any holotypes, which means that this action is like trading research cubes for victory points. However, because they're global objectives, there is a bit of a race to get there first. Now, that describes the overall flow of the game. There are a few more things that affect the course of the entire game. The first is unlocking that grad student. Players begin the game with only the archaeologist and the field assistant, and they can unlock the grad student after they've published their 3rd holotype. Furthermore, as players are publishing holotypes, they're going to be increasing a counter which marks the length of the game. And there are a few checkpoints along this track that will trigger a few events that can happen. So one of these events is to refresh the museum collections, which means replacing any of the cubes there and setting them back to some default resources. But another more substantial event is triggering an upgrade for all players. So at the beginning, players have different upgrade tiles, and when the holotype counter gets to one of these points on the track, a player can choose one upgrade to add to their player board. Then, from then on, the players have that benefit whenever they take the action associated with the upgrade. So, for example, it can be going to the university library and getting an extra research cube, or going to field expeditions and getting more fossils, or being able to draw more cards when you go to the specimen lab, or even increasing your player board's capacity for cubes. This really does help pick up the momentum of the game, so while the game begins and it may seem a little slow initially, the game really picks up pace and becomes exciting up to the very end. So now let's talk about how I would rate this game. This game is very much driven by the worker placement mechanic. The fun in this game comes from choosing who you're going to displace and how you're going to position yourself so that an opponent is compelled to displace your worker. You can actually target actions that you know other people want to take, so that when they take them, you get your worker back. That's really what makes this game very interesting. As far as the theme is concerned, I did not get a very strong motivation for doing this for the sake of these dinosaurs. During the course of the game, everyone I played with simply referred to the cubes as purple, blue, and green. We were flipping cards over, we're saying, oh look, I got two cards with green dice. All right, well, I'll take this one and I'll roll these green dice. I want to trade for green for purple. Despite the level of attention that went into the flavor texts in this game, you are not thinking about the different periods of the Mesozoic era as you play. Even as you're drawing specimen cards, you've got objectives, and your objective may be to publish 6 blue cards, or 2 green, 2 blue, 2 purple, and you're drawing and you're saying, oh, I really needed purple, and all I got was blue and green. I already have blue and green. Like, you're not even referring to the dinosaurs by name. You're just thinking about abstracting it into the colors that you need. But I do really like the displacement based on this hierarchy of authority, and I really like publishing to these journals and paying research cubes to cite other opponents. That makes thematic sense. Everything about dinosaurs, it could have been anything else. It could have been recipes for cookbooks. It's just colors to satisfy abstract colors on other cards. Thematically, this game is really only a 2. For my mechanics rating, like I said, this game is entirely driven by the fun of the worker placement mechanic. There is also a huge element of luck in this game. There's luck in what you draw off the specimen lab. The luck of the field expeditions is almost ridiculous. You're taking an action to draw cards to get you dice, to roll the dice and possibly re-roll the dice so you can get colored cubes. I mean, it's luck stacked on top of luck. You start the game, even from the rules teach, and you go, wow, there's a lot of luck in this game. And you learn very quickly that you're just going, like, it's not a really big deal what you choose. You're just going to have to take whatever cubes you get and then play it the best that you can. And that's, and I think that actually harms the theme as well. But you end up not emphasizing what you do, just how you do it. How do you block actions from other players? How do you get yourself in a position where your worker gets displaced? That's where all of the fun is. For mechanics, I give this game a 9. Now, for components, there's a lot about this game that I'm really satisfied with. The dinosaur artwork itself is very nice. The symbols throughout the entire game are extremely clear. If you look at all of the objectives, even though they've written it out in words, they've also included it in symbols that make it very obvious. They're using color and they're using icons, which are consistent with what's on the cards. So it makes it very easy, even for somebody who's sitting across the table, to look over and identify what the objectives are. I really, really like that. Not only that, but instead of doing what so many other games do and marking on the board that this space is only for 3-player game, this space is only for 4-player game, this game actually just includes different boards for every player count, which gives it so much clarity. I do think that the color and the icons are so overwhelming that they almost impact the aesthetic in a negative way. It's almost like too clear, almost like you're staring at street signs. So ultimately, while I don't think the symbology could be any better, I do think it compromises the beauty of the game. For components, I give this game an 8. For strategy, you really have to de-emphasize what dinosaurs you are publishing, because all of that seems like it's up for luck. It's all about the worker placement mechanic here. The element of luck kind of disrupts a lot of strategy. I'd give the strategy score about a 3 or a 4. For complexity, I ask myself, how difficult is it to teach this game and how many factors are there to consider? So I think with only 5 actions, it's really not that hard to teach. Doing the private objectives and being able to keep track of how many public objectives there are a lot of things to pay attention to. So I would probably give this game about 4.5 for complexity. So finally, my overall impression. I have to say, I really agree with the description that this game puts on the rulebook. It is a competitive, light strategy game for 2 to 5 players. This is a fantastic entry-level game. This is a fun worker placement game that you can play with people who haven't played games that are Euro style or very complex. I would equate this game with something like Catan, like 15 years ago. It can really expand horizons for what a board game can be, but for hobbyists who are really in the game, they're not going to think it goes deep enough, and they're probably going to be a little bit disappointed that the theme doesn't come through in a more powerful way. But I played it 5-player at one of my board game gatherings, and everyone just described this game as really fun. Not an overly involved game, not a taxing game, but a fun and relaxed game. I think this is an excellent game for families, but at the beginning of the video, I said with older kids, because I don't think my younger child, my 6-year-old, would enjoy a game that's driven so much by the mechanics. KK would not enjoy a game with this much focus on just playing the game. I don't think she could appreciate the nuance in trying to see what other players are doing so that she could put her worker there and the worker gets displaced. That's what's fun for me. So I love the pace of this game. I love that the turns are so fast. That's what made it so light and fun for us. I think it could be really fun in a family that really likes dinosaurs. Like, for the sake of the artwork, I love the drawings on every individual card. But I would rate the game for ages 8 and up. So that's Holotype. If you're interested in this game, or if you want to find more games that are like it, you can go to theperfectboardgame.com. You can look up Holotype, and then those attributes will populate a search result for you, and you can find other similar games with this game profile. That's all for today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.